Okay, so for my learning center, I decided to do it on the water cycle, specifically designed for the third grade, and the content standard that we will be focusing on throughout the duration of this learning cycle. Learning center is going to be 3ESS21, represent data in tables and graphical displays to describe typical weather conditions expected during a particular season. So this is going to be found in all of our activities. Where they're tracking their data and truly understanding the water cycle. So for some of the cross-curricular connections, of course we have science, but we also have reading, writing, art, and then some math in terms of collecting the data and such. The assessment strategies that I will be using throughout the entire center is going to be obviously observation during the activities, completion of the worksheets, participation during discussions, a rubric evaluating accuracy and their understanding of the water cycle, as well as their exit ticket, which they will need to complete an exit ticket before moving on to each center, just so that I can make sure that each center is doing what they need to be doing and helping them better understand the water cycle. So before leaving each center, students will complete an exit ticket. So now moving on to the actual center activities, which can be found on this bottom corner. So this even would be really great to have up in the classroom so that kids are able to refer back to it. You can even have copies of each activity because each activity section does have the name of the activity as well as the steps, what they're going to be given as far as the material or manipulatives, and then a small drawing to display what they will be doing. And then on the bottom I have added the cross-curricular connection as well as different, whether it's like what it's meant to do, what it's strengthening within their understanding of the water cycle, or that if it has a hands-on component. So for the first activity, it's going to start from here. This is going to be a vocabulary match activity. So students will match important water cycle terms with their definitions and pictures. So for example, some of the vocabulary words are going to include words like evaporation, condensation, precipitation, collection, water vapor, and clouds. And for this activity, the material and manipulatives that are going to be included is going to be the vocabulary cards, of course, the definition cards and picture cards, and then the recording sheet so that they can see how many they got correctly at the end of the day, at the end of the activity. And then here I've added a little example. So if you see a cloud picture, here's the cloud definition card. So this cloud and then collection of tiny water droplets. And then I've also added here that it is cross-curricular connections with English language arts, and it builds foundational knowledge and scientific vocabulary. So this is a really great activity to start with to get them having like a basic background knowledge moving forward into the other activities. So moving on to the activity number 2, it is build a mini water cycle. So this one's a little bit more hands-on, and they actually get to see the water cycle happen on a small scale. So students will draw the sun, clouds, and water on a Ziploc or zip bag. Then they will add a small amount of water into the bag and seal it and tape it to a sunny window. Over time, the students will observe this and observe water evaporating, condensing, and forming droplets. So they'll be able to essentially see the entire water cycle in their own portable mini cycle. So of this, of course, the materials and manipulatives are going to be Zip-Top bags, the water, permanent markers, and tape. And I've added a little example of what they would do. So drawing the sun, the clouds, and then the little water that they're adding. This has a hands-on component, which I've added here, to create and monitor their own scientific model. Students also practice observation skills and record scientific data in their journals. So as they see the different steps and cycles of the water cycle, they'll be able to notate it, how long it took, and different things like that. So definitely a great thing that they can also continue doing and understanding and seeing it in real time, which will help them understand the water cycle. Moving on to activity number 3 of our center, it is the water cycle wheel. So students will color and cut and assemble a wheel that shows the 4 stages of the water cycle in order. They will label each stage, explain what happens during each stage. The material manipulatives for this is of course going to be the water cycle wheel template, so that'll be something that they cut out and color themselves. The scissors, crayons, and colored pencils, and then the brass fastener to be able to spin to each section. So this, of course, has a cross-curricular connection of art as well as science. This is a hands-on component, and it creates a visual model that they can manipulate and review. So they can change it, they can add on their own notes, and they can look back on this as they move on to the other stations, just to like reflect and look back. So here I've added a little picture: precipitation, condensation, evaporation, and then the last one. So moving on to our last activity of this center is going to be a drop of water's journey. So students will read a short passage entitled A Drop of Water's Journey, and they will answer comprehension questions at the end of it. For example, one of the questions might be, what happened to the water droplet first? So describing the first step of the water cycle. What occurred or what caused evaporation to occur? And what stage occurs after condensation? So after reading it, they'll have to answer the questions. And of course, the materials and manipulatives for this is going to be the reading passage, the comprehension worksheet, and then a pencil, of course, to complete both. I've drawn a little picture here of here is a drop of water's journey. So this represents obviously our passage, and then the worksheet with the questions. This, of course, has a cross-curricular connection of English language arts, as students connect science content with literacy skills, and demonstrate understanding of the water cycle as a whole. So overall, I think that these activities alone, but also especially working together, will have students, allow them to have a great understanding of the water cycle by the end of it. Yeah, so that is my learning center.